materials are going to come from, and who supplies those. Your billing group is going to do another SIPOC to determine. So ultimately, you're going to have several of these for each individual department so that you have a total picture of everything that goes into that process that ultimately produces a product. So, how many suppliers would you have at Shaw? Mm-hmm.
Well, it would actually depend on the department, but from our standpoint, it would be the people that were our guys from.
Okay. And how many suppliers do you have for that?
A lot of them.
No, she says, what she's trying to tell me is, I don't know, but there's a bunch. You got a whole book with them in, all right? Okay. Who are your suppliers out at Pfizer? Have no idea. Oh my. Okay. Nobody's communicated all of that down the pipe.
I do know that they send them out to different countries along with the United States, but I don't know who supplies them.
Don't know who supplies the raw material to make it. Okay? Who's your supplier, Mars?
Well, there's countless numbers, because you got flour got to come from somewhere, sugar comes from a different company, corn flour. Peanuts come in from several different suppliers, not just one supplier of peanuts. They come from different regions of the United States, so you've got multitudes of suppliers.
How many roasting units are on this side of the Mississippi?
I can tell you that. There's a lot though.
Okay. Where do all the peanuts go from here that are roasted?
Just about every place that makes something with peanuts with Mars, and then we do sell to smaller candy confectioners, distributors.
So you've got multitudes of customers.
Yeah, but everything that's a peanut and Mars product comes from this plant.
So every peanut and every Snickers
Yes.
went through this plant out here.
We support a vegan brand.
Okay. All right. Kohl's. How many suppliers do you have at Kohl's?
Over, like, celebrity, like, what do you mean, like, suppliers, like, for clothes or something? Over 10.
10? Okay, 10 plus. Jewelry?
I've seen 5 brands.
Okay, perfume?
Oh, that's a lot.
That's a lot. Okay. And I'm assuming that for all of these organizations, every supplier is vetted and looked at in terms of whether or not they supply what they say they will supply at the time they say that they will deliver it. So there's a lot that can go into this. And on the supplier end, as you respond to the ultimate customer, if that supplier is not able to deliver the quality product that you're trying to sell, that affects ultimately your ability as an organization to meet customer demand and the needs of that customer. So understanding what the supplier provides you and how that affects your process may be critical to your ability to be able to respond to customer demand. As an example, company used to be called Celafoil. I think it's now Exopac, okay? Back in the mid-90s, Celafoil was the only producer of film for Procter & Gamble here in Albany. They produced every bit of film that wrapped the Charmin and the Bounty and all of that. They completed an order, sent it out, and about 2 days later it came back. Right at $68,000 worth of film. Which for Celafoil at that time was a little more than coffee money, okay? And if you looked at a roll of film head on, it was kind of hard to see. But if you looked at the ends, there's red dye, purple dye, red purple dye on the ends of the rolls. And so when it got wrapped, it looked like you had stripes of red and purple all over the bag, so they rejected it. They wrestled with what they called fog for months. They came up with all kinds of answers until somebody said, why don't we check the thickness of the film? And they had a supplier of film out of Bainbridge, the name will remain absent to protect the guilty, that had committed to a specified thickness within tolerance. And when they began taking a measurement of that film every 3 feet for hundreds of feet, they found as much as 2 1,000ths of a difference in the thickness of the film from sample to sample to sample. What that would do, as it was going through the press, where the thick part sections were, it would pick up extra ink, and it would wind up just creating this purple-red fog, as they called it, and stain the ends of it. And so it had nothing to do with what they were doing on the machine or the process. It was all tied into the supplier not being able to supply them with material that was within specifications. But it took them several weeks to finally narrow that down. Sir?
By the way, Procter & Gamble was the only customer that Celafoil had.
So it became kind of critical to figure out what the problem was, since your only customer was not happy with you. Because at that time, P&G was the only customer that Celafoil had. And this was the kind of thing that could have been done. Whether it was done at that particular time, I don't know. To identify who is supplying, what it's supposed to be, what are the measurements associated with it. So this kind of thing becomes vital when you're trying to look at how to deal with problems. So, what does this do? Well, it enables you to verify the link between the outputs and the customer requirements. It enables you to be able to know whether or not you are meeting that customer's need with the product that you are supplying. If customer requirement is this, does product match that? It enables the team to ensure that the problem statement that they work with in terms of resolving the issue, an issue, matches and pairs with at least one of the customer requirements and/or process input requirements. We'll talk more about that when we look at Project Charter in a bit. It helps you to identify the links between the input requirements and the gaps in the customer requirements. Now, what do we mean by that? You have certain requirements in any process. You may not know what this is, but there's some customer requirement that's tied to how you make those Thermacare products. In terms of size and width and thickness and ingredients within it. Okay? And are y'all the ones that's also now doing the Thermacare that's got the little electrical goodies in it? Who's that that's doing that?
I want to say that's, Isaac, the one with your Isaac.
Maybe.
I think that's the lady.
The Shaq commercial.
Yeah. And believe me, if I'm going to buy a product that juices my body, when I take it out of the package and put it on my back and it actually generates an electrical current that shocks my back, I really hope that they have really manufactured that in the strictest of tolerances. That all of a sudden that little goodie doesn't short out, and rather than giving me a milliamp, hits me with volts instead of... Okay? I'm waiting for that to happen. I was electrocuted by a Thermacare product. No. And if any of you are lawsuit happy, don't take that idea and say Dr. Steve was the one that gave me that thought. No. And sue the company. I didn't. Okay? So, what do you need, and does that align with the customer requirement? Because sometimes what I need in order to manufacture this doesn't necessarily align with what the customer wants. And we have to identify those gaps. You have to look at, again, high quality, low cost, that competing customer requirement. I want high quality, but I want it yesterday. Okay? Again, competing customer requirement. I only want to pay $17,000 for a car, but I want it to feel like a Lexus. Or a BMW.
Or cat.
And some of us just go out and buy one and say, heck with it all. Okay? And we all do that. Okay? We all want certain things, but we have other requirements down here as well. The old adage, champagne tastes on a beer budget. So we have to identify what those are. It helps us to identify the information to collect and the questions to answer for the project. And then it also gives us some idea as to what data do we need to pull together and where we can find it. And so we use the information in the input, output, and requirements column to really get a grip on what it is we should measure. You can measure anything. But is it important? I mean, we collect data, all kinds of data. I can take you out to a website that we have, internal website, that is nothing but data. But is it useful? Is it relevant? Does it provide us with the information that we need? One of the issues that we deal around here with is the number of no-shows that we have. Folks that go through the admissions process, go through the registration process, and then just poof, they're gone. And sometimes that is as much as 12% of the number that's registered. I mean, I left here on a Friday before the no-show purge and came back on Monday and almost had a heart attack. Because the number drops 300 to 400. Where'd they go? Of course, there are other people, mainly Dr. Parker, that's asking that question. Where'd they go? We've started trying to get a better handle on all of that. We have gotten better. The percentage is lowering. But there are as many reasons for why people decide not to come as there are the individuals themselves. Had to go in the hospital unexpectedly. My mom was sick. I had a child that got hurt. My car broke down. Don't have any way to get there. Bus line doesn't come close to the house. I live way out in the boondocks. And in reality, our area covers 7 counties. And most of it is rural. And so when you start looking at all of the answers to the questions, why didn't you come? You've got a multitude of reasons. And I'm hard pressed to say that any one of those is necessarily more significant than the others, just based upon what information. But we got all that data. What are you going to do with it? And is it significantly important? It's another question that somebody at a higher pay grade than me needs to answer. Okay? Coals. I bet y'all measure stuff that you don't even know about. Okay. What's your average traffic rate per person
In the store?
in the store per day?
We always talk about that. I never paid attention.
Okay. But why would that be important?
Number of basically sales associates on the floor and stuff. Like, I know, like, enough to where they, how they schedule us. Like, if it's going to be a high traffic area that day, they're going to schedule maybe like three or more people on the floor at a given time. If it's going to get slow, it's going to be only one person on the floor.
Okay. And traffic affects sales. And that's why you have all of these come-on sales. That's why you have almost a sale every weekend about something. Trying to appeal to a different demographic to get those folks, to get that traffic up.
And also they stay open later on weekends because I know the mall closes early. So everyone who is at the mall comes to the weekend.
Mall closes at 6, we'll stay open to 8.
They close at 11.
Oh, y'all get the late night shoppers.
Friday and Saturday.
How late on Sunday?
10.
10.
10 throughout the week.
Right. 10 throughout the week. Oh, man. Okay. They picking up all those folks that got booted out on the mall.
You'd be surprised. There's people there at
You'd be surprised how many people are at Walmart at 2 o'clock in the morning. I mean, it's unreal. And I'm, well, the Larry the Cable Guy, he's got a bit about the people you see at Walmart between 2 and 4 a.m. And it's hilarious. He said, you meet all the strange people in the world because they don't come out except at night. You see all the strange people in the world at Walmart. But they have traffic. That's why you started seeing Winn-Dixie and some of the other grocery stores staying open later and later, because they were restocking at night, so they had to have people there. So why not be open and at least have enough people to run one lane? And they were finding that they had enough traffic all through the night that helped them cover the cost of having people restocking their shelves. It didn't equal it, but it made a dent in it. Strange, but true.
And also, I don't know if they have sort of a coast that 2 weeks, they're open 24 hours a day. 2 whole weeks during the holiday season.
Right.
I don't know, I don't understand how they would actually be able to recoup from that, because there's no way.
Here. Do you know what day Panama City experiences the highest bar traffic of any other night in the year?
St. Patrick's Day.
No. To both? No.
Black Friday?
Nope.
New Year's Eve? New Year's Eve?
Nope.
What would you like?
Nope.
Christmas?
Nope.
Spring?
Nope.
Yeah.
The night before Thanksgiving. The Wednesday night before Thanksgiving. Every bar in Panama City will put porta potties out. They'll stay open to 4 a.m. And that night, above any other night, they will rake it in.
We get primed up to deal with family all day.
Well, that's one issue. I need a little sustenance because Aunt Susie's coming tomorrow. My mother-in-law is in town. I need a break. But they also have Gulf Coast Community College, and FSU has a campus there. They don't go home. Because they're finding that college students that are away from home in today's climate are not necessarily prone to go home over Thanksgiving. Because think about the number of college students today that come from single parent families where there are issues. And so they just don't go home. Because, class is on Wednesday. They're out on Thursday and Friday. So they got a long weekend. Question, do I go home and deal with home? Or do I stay to the beach? And so the Wednesday night before Thanksgiving, that in every bar in Panama City, they will have the biggest night of the year.
Man, you told me that I won't never go down here.
It's hilarious. It's hilarious.
I guess they offer turkey sandwiches or something, right?
Let's see, Saltwater Grill, where my wife and I go sometimes when we're down there at Thanksgiving time. They have an area that has a piano and all that. He plays till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Normally his set's been at 10.
So they got some grown folk here, you need. I'm good.
Yeah.
I ain't be without no kind of kids.
Well, it's adults too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just college kids, it's adults. Yes, I have collected my data firsthand. I have done it. My wife made $20 one night. She went to the restroom and she came out, and my wife is like me in her mid-60s, but she wears these little fedora kinds of things all the time and whatever. And she was wearing one that night, and she had come out of the restroom, and this young lady followed her out, and she said, "I really like your hat. Would you take $20 for it?" My wife said, "Sure." She'd paid $4.98 for it at Walmart. I said, "It tell the girl that, and she told me that. I said, good girl, made $15 profit, you can go back and buy 2 more. She did. Next day, went to the Thanksgiving Day sale at Walmart, bought her 2 more hats. I told her this year we're gonna be down there. I said, how many hats you gonna take with you? We'll see if we'll just wear one here, see if we can sell them all. Pay for the trip. That's just wrong. That's just wrong. But, it's crazy. But now you see, starting the Monday of Thanksgiving week, everybody in Panama City is gearing up for that. Because they can make enough in one night to basically cover their expenses for a month. And it's strange. And I've never seen that happen any other place like that. But Thanksgiving Eve, and everybody does it. I mean, you're talking anywhere from 50 to 80-year-old folks. They just go.
Well, I'm good now. I just thought of college kids. I done did some parties with them, so I don't try to hang around them unless I'm making some money.
Now, for my age group, you go about 6:30, 6:45. Now, you really need to go that early because you won't get a seat. And I'm going to stay out on the patio in November, even in Panama City, okay? It's a little chilly. 6:30. About 9 o'clock, you pack it in, go to the house. Because that's when the craziness starts.
See, that's when I get started.
Well, you need to adjust your time frame.
I can't get that time on making money, so about the high, I can't adjust that.
And musicians, they all want a Wednesday night before Thanksgiving game.
Yeah. Well, you make good money on them kind of gigs. You make
Patches is another eatery that we go to down on Thomas Drive, and it's a hole in the wall. I mean, it's a hole in the wall. But on Fridays, you can get a slab of ahi tuna that's about like that, over a bed of cold noodles with a little seaweed salad on the side. $8.95. Any place else you'd pay $13 for it, at least.
That cheap, man.
And it's only on Friday, starts at noon, goes till whenever they close, ahi. And there's no place to sit. So you try to get there about 5:30, 5:45 to actually be able to sit down. And it'll stay that way till 9:30 to 10 o'clock. They don't have any trouble getting musicians on Friday night.
No. I need
Not
to be
there.
down
And
there.
it's a hole in the wall.
I need to be down there and get in there. I need to find out about this now. I gotta do some research.
Patches.com. Vince and Cindy are the owners. Vince and his wife moved from Michigan to Panama City. He retired from some major corporation up there. Vince said that we've always wanted to own a bar. And so Patches had been sold 2 or 3 times. Nobody was making a go of it. And they came down, bought it. And the restaurant over at the Marriott closed. They weren't doing any business. And the chef that had been at Marriott approached Vince, and Vince hired him on the spot. And it's been ever since. Great food, excellent food. If you want to watch all the sports in the world, just go in and watch the 12 TVs widescreen that are all around. The place is packed on Saturday and Sunday afternoon. Great food, several nights a week, some excellent music. Show you something. They've got an outside area that they keep heated in the wintertime. It's a great place. I was talking to Vince the other night. I said, "You gearing up for Thanksgiving?" He said, "Isn't everybody?" He said, "I can pay for all of our wait staff for a month for what we'll take in on Wednesday night." He said, "So basically I take it in on one night. You don't have to worry about whether or not I can pay them the rest of the month, all the way to the end of the year. It's crazy. And I'm sure it may be like that in other places, but that's the only place that I've actually heard that and documented. But again, it's all a part of this for that one bar, or for that industry in Panama City. It's the supplier and the customer order and demand. What's happening with that? And then looking at the problem statement in the charter to at least understand one of the customer requirements. Project charter. Now, the project charter is going to be the primary document that you utilize to work your project from. It's kind of the document that becomes the guide for what you're doing when you're looking at Six Sigma and the projects that come out of that. We've been talking about a lot of information gathering at this point. We've talked about the affinity diagram, the Pareto chart, SIPOC, process mapping. All of those kinds of things help you to define what your project is going to be and what you're trying to accomplish. And there's a lot of other information as well that you can garner from other things, but predominantly these will be the key things that you'll be looking at. One other that we'll look at tomorrow. So it all starts here. What are the teams that are involved in that change? The project charter, defining the problem, project scope, and the action plan. So, projects are a means through which improvements are made across the board in any organization. You say, well, how big does it have to be a project? That depends on the organization. As I mentioned before, Purdue Farms will not authorize a project unless they can realize either in additional cost savings or additional profit. A project has to be worth at least $250,000 before they'll sign off on it. Now you say, that's a lot of money. Well, considering the fact that at $16,000 a minute downtime, it doesn't take long to rack up $250,000, does it? You can do that. Well, let's see. Somebody multiply 60 times 16,000. 60 minutes times 16,000. What do you get?
Man, I wish I could make that money for 1 year. Come on,
Yeah.
that for 1 year.
Considering that 1 hour's downtime is $960,000. You know, you save 15 minutes on changeover. You can save $250,000 just like that. So even though it sounds like a lot, and it is, I mean, $250,000, you know, I'll take somebody write down a check. Anybody got one? I'll take it. But in their scheme of things, it's not that much money.
Yeah, when you make it that kind of money.
No. Exactly. So, as an example, their changeover time was affecting their downtime because some changeovers were taking as much as 2 hours to accomplish. So that meant they were not running while they changed over from one product to the next. They let me go back in the shop, or in the plant floor, to watch a changeover. And I had to go through and put on the uniform and the outer coat and the boots and walk through the sanitizing solution and the whole mess to get out there on the plant floor. We got to the area that was going to experience the changeover, and the guy that was with me, he said, you probably ought to go and stand on that bit of walkway over there, because when this starts, you'll get run over. Okay? So I went and stood over there, and I started watching what was happening. They were putting out a product. That machine was putting out 7 perfectly formed, identical chicken breasts, just like that, as regular as clockwork, spitting them out one after the other. Next time you go to Subway and you order their chicken breast, look at the grill marks on them. They're identical on each piece. And they're all shaped the same. And they all look alike. And they all have the same grilling on them. I'll tell you that story later. But anyway. So I stood there and I watched. The maintenance guys came in. No tools. No tools. They just kind of wandered in. One of them went over to a closet, opened the closet, pulled out 3 carts. The carts were labeled press, breader, line wrap. That's what they call it. I'm not sure why they called it that. It had in each cart the only tools that were going to be needed to do a changeover on that particular machine. And they were right there at the machine, and that's where they stayed. And they were all lined up. They had a little thingy around the thing where each tool fit in a specific spot. And so you didn't have to lug around these huge toolboxes with lots of stuff and hunt for stuff. What you needed to do the changeover was right at your fingertips. The second that the last piece came out of the press, they began tearing it down. They didn't wait till everything was done. They started right then. And within about 7 minutes, they had that press completely torn down, the individual parts moved around, and a young lady with a 2.5-inch fire hose, wearing insulated rain gear and insulated gloves, came over and at about 100 pounds per square inch hit that press with boiling water and completely sanitized that press within the space of about a minute and a half. So now you've got on that machine, it's been down 7 minutes for tear down, another minute and a half for sanitization, and now they put it back together. It took them 3 minutes to put back together. So 7, 8.5, 3 minutes, 11 minutes. Completely done. As things are progressing down the line, they actually have 2 sets of equipment They pull one machine out, slide the next one in, it bolts to the floor in exactly a pre-positioned place. And the total amount of time from the time it went down until it was brought back up and the first new pieces were spit out were 18 minutes. For 5 machines. That process had been taking them as much as an hour and 45 minutes for that particular operation. I said, y'all have rehearsed this. He said, you have no idea how many times we practiced this. He said, over and over and over again, somebody standing exactly where you are with a stopwatch. Click, here we go. And they're calling out the times, every minute. And everybody's trying to cut another 30 seconds off of the clock. He said, we got it down from an hour and 45 minutes to 18 minutes now. He said, we're shooting to get it to 10 minutes or less. From an hour and 45 at $16,000 a minute to 18. Huge savings. Huge savings. Now, they had to get some carts. They had to buy sets of tools for those carts. They had to rig those machines where they could be pulled out and put back. And they had to do a lot of things like that. But at $16,000 a minute, you can make up for it. You can justify that kind of expense. So no wonder they would say, yeah, we'll okay that project. If you can figure out a way to go from an hour and 45 to 18, we've made this project. So projects are means by which improvements are made. Now, it took them 6 months to get there, because everybody had to figure out where they were supposed to be, what tool they needed, what the movements were, and it was choreographed. I mean, you'd have thought these maintenance guys were getting ready to dance. I mean, it was knit one, purl two, move here, do this, move here, do this. I mean, they had it was like synchronized swimming, only it was unreal. But since they got bonus checks that was dependent upon how much they shaved off, these guys would dance in a heartbeat for that. So, one of the most important aspects of a successful improvement effort is the selection of the right project and the management of them. So, where do projects come from? Well, here's the thing. Projects come from people, problems, project management groups, other places, but it's these same areas that can cause a project not to be successful. Think about this. Can people affect the outcome of a project? You get the wrong mix. For some reason, now I don't understand this, it's really beyond me. For some reason, Calvin and Sharon just cannot communicate in a way that either one of them understand. That happens. That doesn't mean they're bad people. Okay? It doesn't mean that they're evil. It doesn't mean that they're slackers. It just means that they have difficulty understanding. They got that part of it figured out, all right? Yes. Okay? I live with that all the time. At home. I do. My wife and I, that is something that even though we've been married 47 years almost, her brain is wired completely different than mine. She is one of these boop-de-boop-de-boop-de-boop-de-boop-de-boop persons. You know, it's gotta go in order at this time,
You said we got some disorganized.
okay? Totally organized, I mean, she manages 2 households. On her phone, she has 238 contacts. All doctors, all nurses, all druggists, on a first-name basis almost with all of them. Now, she can get stuff done. In fact, her client a couple of months ago was grousing about having to have care and all this sort of thing. And her doctor looked at her and she said, "You'd be in a nursing home, strapped in a wheelchair. You're getting better care with what Sherry's giving you and what Ophelia's giving you. You're getting better care and paying a heck of a lot less than you would get in a nursing home. So why don't you just try being a little grateful?" Now that's the doctor talking to her. And Sherry said, "I waited for the explosion." She said it never came. You know, so sometimes people are the source of great ideas for projects, but sometimes people can, because they can't communicate, go with that. My wife's one of these boop persons. I'm one of these, let's go out and see what happens. I'm one of these wide open, see the big picture, don't worry me with the details, we'll figure it out as we go along. Gary says, "How do you know what you're going to say?" I said, "Well, the answer is I don't. I got in my mind where we're going, but I told him today, I said," he was saying, I said, "Gary, I don't know." I said, "I never teach it the same way twice. It just depends on what kind of interaction I get as to where I go with it." Anyway, but that's weird, and I know that. Problems. Sometimes there is an immediate problem that suggests a project. But there are times when you have problems that really cannot be resolved. That the cost factor and the time factor do not lend themselves to solutions. I know a company here in town that at the time they were started, the idea was great. They brought a machine from Oregon, located it, and it was one of those that the entire machine was as long as this room. And it had to be balanced, and it had to be leveled, and it had to do all of this stuff. And then the whole economy of scale hit, and now that machine sits right out in the middle of their plant floor and maybe gets used 3 times a year. Everybody has to walk around it. And currently, no one else in their 16-member organization around the United States wants it. So what do you do with it? Right now, it's a museum piece sitting out in the middle of their production floor. And in one sense, about the only thing that's useful for at this point in space and time is to sell for scrap at 2 cents a pound, which they're not going to do. But to move it, it would be very expensive. So they tolerate this dinosaur in the room because of that. Project management. Sometimes you find individuals to lead projects that really, really, really are good. They are able to logically think sequentially about how things need to be done. They're able almost intuitively to know which step comes next. On the other hand, sometimes individuals are given projects and they are clueless in Seattle. And they spend a lot of time muddling through. And then there's a lot of other things or other places that projects come from. Economic needs, changes in market, changes in federal regulations,
Safety.
safety issues. There's a lot of things that come into play that create projects. So when you put together a team, you want a diversity of skills. You want people. You know, you want people that actually know how to work well with others. They know how to play well in the sandbox without throwing sand in each other's eyes. Okay? But you also want the technical folks, because those individuals understand how it operates. Case in point, changing a tire. Okay? Lynn's never done that, have you? No. And you don't want to, do you? And she doesn't plan to. Okay? That is outside of her range of experience, nor does she want it to become an experience that she acquires. On the other hand, how many tires have you changed in your life?
Ooh, I don't know, lots of.
Lots of. Okay? So you want individuals that have some technical skills as well as some people skills in the mix. And they need to be able to work well together. Probably if an individual has the reputation of being a total, complete renegade, you might want to think about that. And make up the team. You want to figure out what the responsibilities and roles of each individual team member is going to be. And that ought to be very clearly stated. You don't want any sort of muddying of the waters because someone doesn't understand what they're supposed to be doing. You've got to put together the schedule for meetings, what kind of agenda, how you're going to make decisions. Can we get access to alternative resources? Is there any documentation for this? Do we all need some additional training to be able to actually do this project? And so usually the project team is made up of 5 to 8 people. They understand what the process is about. You may have a champion that actually signs off on allowing the project to go forward. That individual will probably not participate in the project, but their role is to facilitate the project happening. Usually a team will meet at least once a week, usually an hour to 2 hours, and usually a Six Sigma project will take 3 to 6 months. A lean project may take less than that. Usually for a Kaizen event in a lean format, the Kaizen event is going to take about 5 weeks or 5 days, and for every day that you're working, you ought to have at least 1 week of preparation prior to. So if it's a 5-day event, you at least need to have 5 weeks of preparation before that event happens, and then at least another 2 weeks after that to make sure it's still working. We've talked about the project champion, the team leader. Many times that's a process owner, can be a green belt. It's somebody that has something to gain by the completion of the project. That team leader will establish the meeting schedule. He may or may not run the meeting, but he is the source of communication to let the champion know what's going on. The facilitator, he makes sure everybody plays nice. This individual should have some conflict resolution skills, because you put 5 to 8 people in a room together for 3 to 6 months, you're going to have issues. Ain't no doubt about it, you're going to have an issue. So whoever is, and sometimes the facilitator is leading the meetings, that individual needs to have the ability to take differences of opinion and work with the individuals to come to resolution. Somebody needs to take minutes, document, so everybody knows exactly what we're doing. And then you may have other individuals who work in the process, not full-time or not all the time, but they come in as needed. They may be ad hoc. They come in to supply you with specific information on a one-time basis. And then when you're done, you do the project report out. This is what we did. Usually that's done to the leadership team or for the leadership team. And usually some sort of acknowledgement goes to the team. Usually not money, but some sort of recognition of accomplishment. Okay, the only person who enjoys change is a wet baby. I laugh at that, but they're right. Because it's not so much that we're afraid of change or so in love with the old ways, but it's the place in between that we get concerned about. It's like that trapeze guy aiming for the hands of the other guy on the other one. And it's not his ability that he's worried about. It's not his ability. It's that space in between when he's just kind of laid out there, waiting for those other hands to grab him. That's terrifying. I talked to Glenn Williams, the orthopedic surgeon here in town. He did not start out to be an orthopedic surgeon. He actually started to be an anesthesiologist, putting people to sleep. He said, I had absolutely no problem with putting somebody to sleep. I had no problem with keeping them asleep. He said, but when that doctor said, I'm done, bring them back. He said, from that moment until the first, he said, I couldn't handle it. I could not handle that time in between. We're done until they moved. Even if it was tunk. He said it was so totally terrifying. He said, they all moved. But he said, I couldn't deal with that day in and day out. So he decided to put bones back together. I'm glad he did. Okay? He would have wasted his skill being an anesthesiologist. He would have probably made more money, but wasted his skills. Okay? So, what are the barriers to change that you've experienced? Oh, come on. Habits. We've always done it this way. Don't you love that one?
Ego.
It's what they're used to. People will tolerate, inefficiency and doing it incorrectly because they're used to it. Because I don't know where I'm going to land with this change. And I'm used to this. I will guarantee you almost to a 100% that tomorrow morning, and now that I'm about to give you the clue, you won't do it. But if I hadn't given you the clue, you would. Every one of you would go back to the same seat that you're sitting in now. And many of you will tomorrow, even though I've warned you that I'm looking for it. Why? You're used to it. And you've only been there one day. And every other time you come in this room, you'll probably gravitate to that seat. And if your seat's taken, it's like in church. I have literally known older women tell people that they had to get up and move because it was their seat. As if they had greater ownership than God to the thing. Hey, just the way it is. And think about this. One day. And if I told you that tomorrow I would seat you That's it, that's the look, right there. I was waiting. She gave me this fish-eyed look like, what you talking about? You gonna seat me. I'll show you where I'm gonna sit. Bowed up, locked feet, snarl on her face. Now she's laughing because I called her out. And it's only taken a day. Okay? Why else do people have problems changing?
Sometimes lack of knowledge.
Oh, okay.
Too.
Why? And that's usually, and in many cases, that is one of the real keys to overcoming this resistance. Give people the information. Why are we doing this mess? Informed workers will generally rise to the occasion. But if everybody is wandering around and withholding information like it's a state secret and you need a double-aught spy clearance to access it, then probably they're not going to be real forthcoming and jump on the bandwagon. In fact, they may try to torpedo it because they don't understand. Why else are people resistant to change?
Okay.
Can be, usually not, but sometimes that has an influence. Why else?
Position
The position of who?
of individual who might be changed. Like,
Okay. All right. I worked on this machine for 14 years. Why do I need to learn how to do this one? I'm really good at this one. Why do I need to do this one?
They don't know what to expect.
You don't know what to expect. It's new, uncharted territory. Sometimes it's the person asking you to change. If you do not have a level of respect for that individual, if you don't feel that that individual can be trusted to get you to the promised land, you may not want to go along with it. I'm going to jump into a little bit of theology here, just for the sake of keeping it diverse. Why do you think the Israelites had such a hard time leaving Egypt?
Well, they felt secure. They know what they had to deal with. They were slaves, but they knew exactly what they were dealing with there. But,
Better to be a slave and know than free and not. And who is this God that when we ask his name, somebody tells him, just tell him, I am sent me? That is undoubtedly one of the strangest answers that you could have to any question. They knew who Horus was. They knew who Aten was. They knew the gods of the Egyptians. But I am? And who's this guy that's going to lead us? A murderer? Moses the murderer. I mean, he was. He killed an Egyptian, buried him. And then somebody dug him up and Pharaoh put a price on his head. Not exactly a line item you would want on your credential or resume for employment. So there were a lot of trust issues involved in that. Better to stay a slave than be free. Because slavery, I understand. Freedom, what's that? Change. Change. Who's asking me to change? Do I have respect, trust for the individual? Do I have some knowledge about the change? Do I understand why we're doing it? Has somebody bothered to tell me? All those factors, the absence of any or all of those, cause us to do this. Over my dead body. And some people will resist like that. So, providing people with knowledge and skill will help create an environment for change. Getting senior management to support it, giving the people the training they need to implement the change. Don't just take them out of the deep water that they're finally swimming in after X number of years and throw them into another pile of deep water. Make people available. I'm sorry that we're having to do it. I'm glad that the resources are available, especially as it relates to the acts of terror within schools. You know, the providing of counselors and resources to help individuals deal with that kind of change. That kind of change for a young person is one of the most horrific that they can undergo. To experience the loss of a friend, a classmate, someone that's close to, that they've seen every day for ever how long, and then to have that individual killed. And at least now, when I was in high school, one of the guys in my junior class had one, two beer too many and decided to break into the Lakeside Country Club in Atlanta to where the liquor was kept. He wanted more. So he jabbed his elbow through the door, opened the door, and as soon as he opened that door, the night watchman cut him in two with a double-barrel 12-gauge. Just blasted away and killed him. Now, never mind what he was doing or whatever, but the situation of that individual being killed rocked our junior class. And how did we deal with that? On our own. Because in 1966, nobody thought about what high school counselors could or maybe should do. You were just kind of out there to deal with it. So make change agent resources available. Take the successes that you've had with other projects and remind people, we've made other changes. These have been the results. It's worked well. Here's something else that we think and believe is going to really turn out good. So use that as a backdrop. And always instill in others a passion for seeing things done right. So you kick off the project, you define what it is. The team charter should include all of these kinds of agreements. The actual project charter should have a problem statement. When you're working with a project team, that problem statement is going to be your guide for the rest of the project. And so you really need to be able to define what the problem actually is. A lot of projects, well, let me put it this way. The lack of a clear, concise, directed problem statement and a faulty definition of what the project scope is are the two major reasons that projects fail. We don't define the project well. We don't understand what the scope of the project should be. We just start and run and it fails. So pay a special attention to those two elements. In the scope area, what are the boundaries for this project? Don't go out here and think you're going to solve world hunger. You aren't. So what are the things that are within the scope of this project and what are the things that aren't in the scope of it. With my black belt people, the first deliverable that they give me is their project charter. Invariably, one of the things that that will cause me to kick that project charter back for, and they hate this, R/R. Some of you that have been in my other classes know what that means. Revise and resubmit. Okay? And one of the things that I invariably have to kick it back for is tell me what's not in the scope of this project. Because people will try to throw, it's like politicians. They tack amendments onto the bills that wind up being costly. So make sure your project scope is clear and defined, as well as those things that aren't in scope. Here's another way of explaining that. You're always wanting to look at project processes, the inputs, how they affect the customer, and then to be able to define what is critical to the quality of that product for the customer. What's got to be there for that customer to want to buy it and keep coming back. So here's an example. The customer wants accurate and timely order processing. That's the end goal. And in order to do that, there are two outputs that you've got to have. You've got to have the order complete and on time, and the billing for that has to be accurate. In order to get it out and on time, you got to have all of the line items shipped, it's promptly released, and the order is received on time. All three of those things have got to have in order for that to occur. For the billing to be accurate, the billing has to match the contract. You get the first call resolution on everything, and the billing is easy to understand. Forget the billing on doctor's claims with insurance payments. I think they make it complicated just to confuse you. Okay? So in reality, that's one project. And the other is the second. Doing two at once, there's going to be too much crossover.